Oh, my
Is
gosh.
it recording already?
Hmm.
You just have all the outtakes. Just
Yep.
talking about
I always
poop
like to
and
show them
footsies.
first.
It's amazing.
Welcome back. This is our final of our three-part little interview thing. Hopefully, it's not going to be too loud, but we're at Hatch outside in the back courtyard area with Micki. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name's Micki. I my pronouns are they them, and I've been a hairstylist for just about 11 years now. I found myself in the middle of barbering and Cosmo, so I'm not sometimes I call myself a barber, sometimes I'm a stylist. It just depends on how I'm feeling in the day. We started Hatch Hair and Company last year after we just couldn't find anywhere in the South Seattle area to be booth renters that like aligned with our morals and our values. So we created something, and it's almost been a year. It's been really good.
How I don't even know. Like we've known each other. Or was that your foot?
Yeah.
We've already started.
Keep playing footsies.
um, like you and I've worked together and known each other for about 5 years now.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I was just thinking on the way over here just about like our own journeys and like how we've seen each other kind of grow and develop and everything, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, knuckles. But so you've done a few interviews before.
Yeah.
This is just really just kind of a conversation, just kind of hang out and chat and stuff.
I like these better.
Yeah, much more casual.
Especially with you.
Yeah.
We sit and chit chat all the time.
That's true.
That's my favorite.
um, I mean, you've done a lot of work with the queer community in Seattle, and I mean, there's plenty of other folks that have, but like just kind of like bringing things together. What has really kind of like, do you think, been like the guiding light to kind of like create that for yourself and for the community here?
I think it just came out of a place of it not really existing fully. Like, I don't know, Seattle's always been a very queer, safe space in general, but within the hair industry, there were places that claimed to be and were like mostly okay, mostly safe. It were places that claimed to be, and then there was like one or two people that worked there that were the safe people within that space. And there was always options, but there wasn't like one hair space that was dedicated to
Yeah.
that, and that brought in majority queer clientele, majority queer stylists, just really focusing on that small niche of it, because it's already so hard to have a small business in a big city where there's a million hairstylists, a million barbers. And so like noticing that there was kind of that missing link, and the majority of my clientele was already queer, like I'm queer, it made sense to just kind of lean into that, and
Yeah.
it's brought in a lot of people so far.
I think it's really interesting. Like you're from Salt Lake City or Utah area, I should say. I'm from Eastern Washington, like two areas that are like historically a little bit more repressed as far as things go. And like my clientele over in Spokane was everybody, right? But then coming here to Seattle and really kind of like not hunkering down or anything, but it's easier to find people and similar people and like kind of be that for people. So you haven't seen the other interviews because they're on my computer waiting to be edited. But I met with Micki, the other Micki, and we ended up talking a lot about curls, queer styling, and also neurodivergent and immunocompromised, and just how to kind of facilitate aspects to help kind of cater to those folks or even like make it more inclusive. And then I met with KJ the other week, and we ended up talking. It was honestly a lot of like ADHD folks like chatting back and forth, but we ended up talking a lot about places that seem to be like the overarching theme, and like our hometowns. They were in the military for a while, and just kind of like learning more about that experience and their experience, and kind of creating some of those smaller pockets within it. And I shared with them, and these people have probably heard me say it like 3 times now, but you know, when I connected with the salon in Japan, like part of their first questions for me were, what does it mean to be a queer hairstylist?
Sure.
Because over there, you can be a hairstylist and you can be queer, but very rarely do they overlap and like intermix together in like a public way. And so that got me thinking, what does it really kind of mean? And so that's kind of like what has spurred like this series with it. I thought there was like a squirrel or something back there.
Just the tree.
Just the tree whispering. But I guess like to kind of cut to the chase with it, like for you and given a similar background and things like that, what does that mean for you and like for maybe places and people that don't have as much visibility or can't be, or just don't know how? Like, what are some aspects that they can kind of incorporate, and what kind of like stands out to you?
Are you asking more like the people that are still living in more like small town, not as like queer cities, like how
I
to?
think ultimately, just because like, you know, we're lucky in Seattle, like we're able to be a little bit more open with it, and we don't have to try to create those spaces as much. But especially with just the world things are now, how the world is now currently, and then other countries that may not have as much of a population, or there's still like different social constructs that kind of create barriers for those people.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe any pointers, any suggestions, or even just ideas, and talk about your experience within that.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just finding people that are like you. Like if you are doing weird alternative hair, the weird alternative queers are going to find you.
Yeah.
You know, like I never did hair in Utah. I went to beauty school there and then moved up to Washington like the day after I finished because I knew I didn't want to stay there. And mostly that was because there weren't any salons that had that vibe that I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be more barbershop, like short haircut focused, but the ones that were there were very much like boys clubs. And that's changed immensely in the last 10 years since I've been gone. Like there's a lot of really cool programs like Lucero Hair and Wellness just opened up in Salt Lake a couple years ago, and they're doing incredible things on a wide scale of just like creating a safe space for all people, and it is a queer owned business, but they're like everybody's welcome here. And so I think as those of us that couldn't find what we wanted, you know, in the last 10 years are creating more spaces, it's going to give more people opportunity to find a spot that works for them, and they're not just settling for something that doesn't fit who they are and what they want to be as they grow in their career.
KJ and I talked a lot about that, as far as like just like not really finding spots for people, and also like with Micki, we were talking about like different ways that people, even allies that may not be in the community, can show support and also help facilitate and create those, if there isn't anything already but they want to and feel drawn to. I think that's a huge thing, and I think also like social media is such a double-edged sword within that. I know a bit more about your story than like maybe these folks, but like how much has social media played a part into your like building your brand, being visible, knocking boxes off of
making yourself visible?
Yeah.
It's been huge, but not in a way that I have to use it. I don't know. When I started beauty school in 2014, like Instagram was around, but it wasn't like, I remember taking a class on it, but it was not the way that you built your clientele.
I think we finished around the same time.
Probably.
Yeah, because I finished in 2016, and it had just started to kind of cusp, but like it still wasn't like a major advertising source yet.
People weren't posting to get clients in their chair. It was more just like, have a portfolio.
Yeah, and here's the stuff that we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
When I first moved to Washington, I was working at a Sport Clips because I had zero experience. I needed some clipper work, and I couldn't afford to work as an apprentice somewhere for free. It just, and a lot of the spaces around here in Seattle wanted you to work for free or to have years of experience before you started, and I just didn't have that.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. And it was like commercial, you know, franchise as it was still a great learning experience. But it was while I was there that I created my Instagram to be the Barber Micki, and started posting more of my haircuts that I was like excited about, and people started finding me through there. And that it was weird when that started, because I didn't want to become an Instagram barber. I don't want to be fully on the internet all the time. I want to just be able to post the haircuts that I'm excited about when I'm excited about them. So after a few years of that and realizing that the haircuts that I was posting is what people were asking for, I was like, okay, if I want to shift away from maybe more of the skin fades, I need to post more of the mullets. And once I was at Rudy's and, you know, I had my pronouns on the website, and it kind of like signaled that I was a little bit more queer in the sea of stylists. And people could see my Instagram and saw that I was posting, like, if it was skin fades, it was on femme or non-binary people, and just more
gender non-conforming.
Yeah, I just leaned more into posting the people that I wanted and the haircuts that I wanted on those types of people, and eventually it just blew up.
I think that's so cool. And from an outside person perspective, like, it's really easy to see barbers or hairstylists posting things, and it's like, oh, this must be what they do all the time. And I think that's in some way part of manifesting and creating that. But it's really interesting just to really kind of hear and identify. It's like, you really kind of have to put that out there as far as like things that you want. Even for myself, I think back, it's like it's not like my goal was to never be like a curly hair like stylist, but like, you do so much of it, and then at the same time, after a while, your feed or your posts just consistently have the same themes. And you're like, oh, when did this happen?
All of a sudden you're the specialist.
And I still don't even really like that word, but like, what kind of, I know what you're interested in now as far as like cuts that excite you, a big rat tail moment. But what are some of the things, when you take a step back, like, what are some things that like really are some of your favorite types of cuts to do, or like features of?
I think there's parts of every short haircut that I love. And I'm really fortunate to have had the background in Cosmo and learning scissor work, but then also have learned so much clipper work, because if I didn't get really good at skin fades, I wouldn't be able to do really cool tapered mullets. And being able to blend just kind of every haircut that has ever existed and take different ways of cutting different haircuts and create them into like this baby modern mullet shag
textured
rat tail like shit that's happening. I don't know, can I say shit on your podcast?
I don't know. I've been doing it.
I just feel like there's so much room for creativity within short haircuts, because you're working around the way that hair moves and you have to listen to it, and there's just more that goes into it with texture than just, you know, straight angles, and that can just personalize it so much more for everybody. So I don't think there's like one specific thing that I love more than others. I just get bored of haircuts too fast. Like, if I post something on my Instagram and I'm like, I want to do more of these, unfortunately I get a ton of them all at once. It's great, but then I'm like, okay, I don't want to do just this all the time. And so I have to be more intentional about what I'm posting and what I'm saying about that, because I want to see all kinds of stuff still.
I think there's a couple things that I want to touch on. One, I think that's 100% true. Like, I know even for myself, it's like, oh man, like, this is great and I love these things, but I also am like, oh yeah, I still know how to do these other things. I'd like to like flex those muscles too. And then I think what you touched on is a great kind of like thing to focus in on. Just really taking that like blending of barbering and Cosmo. Similarly in Spokane, and even here sometimes, like, there's very much a distinction between boutique salon and then like old school barbershop. And what I could have stayed in Spokane, you know, we could have stayed wherever we wanted, but like what we found in Seattle was kind of what we were looking for and wanting to create. And I think that with like the industry kind of shifting towards things like you know, taking gender out of hair because it's just a hair, and then just like the advancement of knowledge and training, like, and even what we're kind of trying to create within the community here is really blending of those two things. And I think that I'm not quite sure where this is going as far as like conversation goes, but I think like within the queer industry or the queer industry,
it's an industry at this point.
within like the queer community, and then also like the hair industry, like taking those two things that have always previously been separated, either by license or by like
the social norms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think, or like, because I know that education can sometimes be intimidating, especially going from one field and like peeking into another. And when I was up in Bellingham for school, there were a few cosmetologists that wanted to go learn a little bit more about clippering and like barbering, and they actually went to kind of like a old school mom and pop, like it was just one person, I can't even remember the guy's name, but he'd been in the industry for a long time, and they were like, oh, can we watch you barber cut? And he was like, no, like this is for barbers only.
Sure.
And so it's just like, I don't think that people kind of understand like how separated sometimes that has been, and like how much that really plays into like modern day. Beside my monologue, like, I guess, can you kind of touch on anything outside or on top of that with like blending things together, and like how people can kind of approach that, or like where we can find some resources? Or
yeah, I mean, just talking about how there can be more spaces that are shared and asking to shadow people. I know that there's so many people out there now that, especially those of us that have been doing hair from that like, I don't know, 5 to 15 year range now, we all saw how the industry used to be, and we're wanting it to change, or being part of the change. And we're more than happy to have people come watch us. Like, especially if you're just like standing there and watching a cut, it doesn't affect us at all. And a lot of, well, the little free time I have lately, I've been trying to spend more time like in beauty schools. Like Nick and I both got our instructor license from Evergreen during the pandemic times, because we were like feeling stagnant in our careers. And so I like to be able to go back there and like kind of teach a little bit to the students, but also tell them these things, because I know like school has a very specific way of what they're being taught, and you know, letting them know that there can be a blend between the two industries, and that we're doing things to try to create more spaces for both, and in that, you know, making connections online. And so when I have a class like I did last week, I made it very accessible to new stylists, new barbers, people that are newer to the industry, because it gets expensive to pay to go to classes. And having that be accessible made it so some of those people from the school were able to come and not have to pay hundreds of dollars to get some education. And I'm fortunate that I have the time and the energy that I can teach a class at a sliding scale, you know, rate to be able to help. Because if we don't listen to what these new stylists need and want that are coming into the industry, in another 10 years, it's going to be the same thing as what we're dealing with, where they're trying to make a change for what they need to see in the industry, because we won't listen.
And ultimately, you know, there's always going to be differences, but chances are those changes they're trying to create would be the exact same ones that we're trying to create now.
Right.
And probably stylists before us were trying to do the same thing, but like I talked with some of the other ones earlier this month, but like technology has really made such an impact to be able to have an app easy to just do our taxes, to like just have like all these resources that our predecessors didn't really have.
Truly.
And much, I mean, everything adds up and it's not cheap, but like it's much more affordable than it used to be, and accessible. So
to like be your own business owner, is that what you're kind of hitting at? Yeah.
And like to the resources and stuff.
Right. Well, and when I left a commission salon to be a booth renter, I had no idea what I was doing. And I reached out to certain stylists throughout the area, and some people were helpful and gave me little tips and tricks, but there was no like list. Like the government does not want to give you a list on how to run a business. And so that's something that I've really tried to curate for my type A personality is like, here's a checklist of all the licenses that you need. And, you know, when I'm talking to somebody that is either brand new into the industry or wanting to start booth renting, I can be like, okay, this is the things that you'll need, and this is the general cost of all that, just to give them a better idea of what it's going to be. Because if we can have more people coming into the industry knowing how to run their own business, there's going to be less stylists and barbers being taken advantage of.
Yes.
Because they have that knowledge.
Yep. I think I want to go back to something in a little bit, but not right now, because I forgot about it. But I think that list, first of all, I function off of lists as well, and it's just fantastic. And it was funny because like I think we were both like working to create something at that same time too. But it's so helpful to have that, and I don't think that a lot of folks outside of the industry really know like how that works, because obviously that's not their world.
Sure.
But there really isn't like a list for us. There's no blueprint. Even in school, like most of the time we aren't taught how to like do certain things. So it's really just like following examples, making shit up, and seeing what works and what doesn't. And like you said, like there isn't like a direct, clear cut path for business owners anywhere.
But that's what makes it cool.
Yes.
It's like there is a right and the wrong way to do it, but there's also like
so much flexibility.
Yeah, and we can all be doing things exactly how we need to be doing them for what works. And that's not wrong.
No.
Especially like in the hair world too. Everybody can be doing the same haircut, slightly different, and it's still going to be unique to you.
What going back to your class, what were some of any questions or like overarching like highlights that people were fascinated with, that kind of like spotlighted moments for you? Anything that you were surprised by?
You know, there was nothing I was surprised by, just because when you're teaching to a class larger than like 4 or 5, it's usually them just staring at you and you're talking at them for 2 hours. And so there was a few people that said that they had some good takeaways and were able to implement them, but they weren't specific about what it was. And I don't think I necessarily need to know which their big takeaways are, because I'm just showcasing the way that I cut, which I know is slightly different than most people because it's a blend of tons of different things that I've learned over the years. And even if people don't learn, it's still a space to like be social and connect with people that they've seen through Instagram. I mean, there's so many barbers and stylists in Seattle I know through social media, but don't get to meet until we're in a class space,
communal space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think from the feedback that I did get was mostly the way that I create texture is different than most, because there's not a lot of precision to it. It's more like vibes, like the calyx gonna stick here, so how do we create texture to make it do that? And so it creates longevity in the haircut and looks intentionally messy all the time. And I don't know if people have been showed that in a very specific class way, but
yeah, I think for me, I feel like when we're talking about like I don't want to even say queer hair necessarily, but like popular common hair right now, it's a lot of texture, which not necessarily curls or shape, but like it's a lot of like broken kind of like shattered effects,
very lived in,
yes,
natural.
And even what I've been seeing elsewhere, even in Japan, like they were saying that like people don't want to do their hair anymore because we don't have time, and also the education I don't think is quite there to like effectively do it. But I don't know, like, do you see that? This is a silly question because I have my own feelings and answers to this, but do you see that continuing on? And
I think so.
I do too.
Especially in the more low-key cities like Seattle, I don't know.
Yeah.
And in general, like, I feel like when I was growing up in Utah, it was a very kind of high-class place. Like sleek hair, people wanted this specific straight hair, which was also just a product at the times, but dressing really specific, like always having a full face of makeup. And as the years have gone on, like they're more outdoorsy looking now. Like people that are out in the mountains aren't necessarily doing their hair every day. And that's similar out here, where people want something they can put a hat on, and if they take it off later, it's not too bad to like just adjust. Or like when you're sleeping on your hair. You wake up and it's intentionally bedhead. And I think that, one, haircuts are expensive now, and we understand that. And so if we were creating haircuts that have natural texture, that have more longevity, people don't have to come back and get them as often to still feel good about it. Where those ones that, exactly, those ones that were like the huge pompadours and stuff, you had to style every day. You had to get a haircut every 2 to 4 weeks, or else it lost its shape.
Yeah, especially like, what was that? That was between 2016 and 2019, 2020, really, is when I kept seeing a lot more of like the really sharp, clean cut styles. And then after COVID, obviously, everyone had longer hair, which was great.
Right.
But I think I had something that was good too. It'll come back maybe. But I don't know. I think, that's what it was. I am no history major, but I do know a little bit about like hair history. And from what I understand, back in the day, roller sets and like perms and everything were kind of used a lot, and to kind of, they would go in, get a roller set, and then throughout the week they would like allow it to shape and like change and become a different style throughout the week. And what you were saying about like lived-in hair and textured hair, and it feels like it's just kind of like this version of it.
No, totally.
So I don't know.
We've just expanded into a different type of hair.
Yeah.
I mean,
less maintenance.
Yeah, both my grandma and my great-grandma were hairstylists, and their main thing was roller sets. Like, one of my grandmas still does hair because people, people once a week come in and get their sets. And that's when she's been going to somebody for that for 30, 40 years. You can't not.
No.
And like, they would even, once their clients died, they even went to the funeral home and did the roller sets on them in the funeral home.
Because that's like who they are.
Exactly. Like, their natural straight texture was never ever seen. It was always done into this like big textured thing. And I think that's really cool to connect that to now, because that's not something I ever thought about, is how like we're doing the same thing, just with less tools.
Yeah.
And not needing to be done as frequently.
It's true. I think, do you think roller sets will ever come back?
I think you'll bring them back. I don't want to do them.
Even Micki, earlier, I was like, oh man, like, give me perms. I don't really, roller sets, I don't know. But I mean, it's even less permanent, so why not?
I mean, everything comes back with trends in general, like, and we've been doing this long enough. Modern, just make it modern.
Yeah.
Everything cycles back. So.
I was gonna say, you're going to like say how long we've been doing it, and like, what are some of your favorite trends that you've seen cycle back around? I feel like it's about to.
People hate the teenage boy broccoli haircut.
Oh, hot take. I love it. Go on.
And people hate it so much, and I know they do, but it's honestly a really fun haircut to do.
It really is.
Like, you have to cut it and then let them scrunch it and see how it lays, and then cut it again. Like, it has to be very,
because you can never scrunch it the same.
Exactly. But when I was in beauty school, that Justin Bieber side bang swoop was really big, and it is very similar to that haircut. It's just more textured, it's more up rather than swoopy.
Down.
And I remember people hated the Justin Bieber haircut for a long time, and now it's like an iconic part of hair history.
True.
It's just like Macklemore's like pompadour side shaves were.
The GZ with the hard part. Yeah.
Exactly. So we've come full circle. It's just styled differently and permed. So.
What do you think makes a style modern?
Probably just because it's happening right now, and it's slightly different than it used to be.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of square shapes, but like that's just.
Well, I think blending shapes were like, because in the past, traditionally masculine barbershops are it's very square, very
sharp angles.
Sharp, where like the softer was more feminine and round, and now we're doing a mixture of both. And so I guess any type of modern haircut is just a mixture.
Yeah, that's true. I think, and then I don't know, for me it's like, color is a whole different part of my brain that like needs exercise, but like for haircuts and things, like shapes are great, and like that's one of the tools that I use to break down a haircut when I don't have a blueprint, and just really kind of like paying attention to like what shape falls on what part of the head. There's no question that was just statement, I guess.
No, it's important though. Like especially having a majority queer clientele and like people that are non-binary or right in the middle. Like if we're doing a different haircut and different shape, asking them about the corners being round versus square is so important, because if somebody's wanting to lean into a more masculine look and you round those corners out, they're instantly gonna hate it.
Yeah.
And they don't know why they hate it.
It's so subtle.
Yeah, but that's something that we can control that they don't necessarily think about.
I had a client recently come in with a bob and wanted to keep the bob, but wanted a more masculine to it. And, you know, even now in my career, sometimes I have to like think, like, how do we want to do this?
Right.
But it really is just changing the shape of the layers. And I think this is also like potential future plan, because God knows I have like 50,000 of them. But like,
you're busier than I am these days. You're doing cool things though.
I am.
Really cool
I can't help it. I get, but I'd love to do a class on layers, because even a lot of Cosmo students or barbering students that I've worked with at the school as well struggle with that concept. And I think when I was a student, like I understood like, oh, these are the 3 different layers, but then there's like the cause and effect, and there's not different types now, but there are different types of layers now and different techniques for it, and different cause and effects of it. And
that would be a really beneficial class, even just for someone like me that doesn't do a lot of layers. Like I would love to learn how you do them and why you do them, and just get back to those pieces.
Yeah, once I'm able to figure out how to put those into words, we'll figure that out.
We can teach you that how.
There we go. I guess like that's a great segue. Like as a salon owner, like we've known each other since we were employees, then we went to like independent contractors, and now you're like an actual like full on like business, like storefront owner. What has that journey been like? And then also just like, because I know the answer. But yeah, I mean, and then also like, I don't want to take the words out because I think you've got a cool story, but like even just tapping into resources for creating a space like this.
Yeah, I mean, when I left being an employee stylist, my goal was within like 5 to 8 years to have a storefront, because I knew that was something that I wanted. But things happened. There wasn't places that I felt comfortable in, and so we had to do it in 2 years of me moving an employee business or employee stylist situation. And so I didn't feel like I was fully ready. And now that we've been open for a year and I've talked to lots of business owners, I've realized nobody's ever ready. There's not a good time. You kind of just have to do it.
There's an ideal time.
Right.
But that's like always in the future somewhere.
And usually the ideal time is only based around, do you have the funds or not? And I didn't really have the funds. And that's why, like, finding the resources that I did within South Seattle were like truly, I couldn't have done it without it. And the ones that I ended up working with were ones that clients had told me about, because I'm always talking to my clients about what my plans are and what I'm doing, and like finding their resources. And I would not have been able to do it without them helping me.
Our clients are like our biggest resources.
Truly.
And like I've talked to earlier in some of these interviews, it's like with Micki, I think it was about like creating their like spot to be more neurodivergent and like sensory friendly, but just listening to our clients, and then it's nice to hear that they're also listening to us
and want to help us.
And I think they feel a part of it.
And I've always appreciated that. That's the hardest part about being too busy these days, is that I want to see everybody. I want to meet new people and have new people and experiences I share, and build new friendships and new connections. And
I think that's one of the biggest struggles that, from my perspective, I've heard you express, is just like being torn in like different ways, because you now have like all these things that you're juggling. But again, you're doing cool stuff, right? And so I think that even if they're not able to get in as much, like I still hear it and see it. So,
well, I mean, even with that and
Mhm.
going kind of back to the resources,
Yeah.
one of the biggest ones that I utilized was the Rainier Valley Community Development Fund, and they give loans and like financial support to businesses in the Rainier Valley. So it was so specific to the area that I wanted to be in, and without them giving me like a line of credit that I can pull from when I need to, that isn't a traditional bank loan. Like I'm able to pay it back monthly as I can. There's not like a set amount. Like I have to pay the interest, but like there's not a huge set amount I have to pay every month. It's very small business friendly, and without that, I wouldn't be able to like, I don't know, if there's months where I need to step back a little bit and focus more on the business or not making as much behind the chair, I can pull from that and know that I'm okay. And that they're always reaching out, giving me support, like congratulating me when I pay more one month than I do another month. Like they're stoked if I can pay more, and then I'm excited. And
I think
that was been really cool.
That's so, I mean, hearing about that one was kind of inspirational because it really highlights how many resources, maybe not every city has, but how many resources there really are that nobody even knows about. No, or where to, right? And so, I mean, for clients listening and watching or whatever this ends up becoming, you know, if you have those things, like share that. Like that's amazing just to kind of be able to spread that information.
I tell everybody about it all the time.
Yeah.
The other one is less specific to South Seattle. It's the Business Impact Northwest, and so they do small business coaching for free for, you know, minorities, people of color, LGBTQ, women-owned businesses. They're very specific for that in all of the Northwest, like even up into Alaska.
Oh wow!
And
I didn't know they reached that far out.
Yeah, and having a free business coach is incredible. And I've learned that there was a lot that they didn't know within the hair industry, which that's fine because I know about hair. I don't know all the business stuff. I didn't know how to write a business plan. And it took me almost 6 months to finally do one with the guidance of somebody like checking it and showing me resources, showing me how to use the library for like, like I've always used the library for books, not for like classes, demographics of the area. I didn't know to look that up.
And I think that's really cool too. I've utilized their help a little bit as well, and just a great resource to have. I ran in, we've talked about this before, but I ran into a similar thing where it was like even trying to create a business plan for a salon or even my own thing. It's really hard because our industry, there's other industries similar to it, I think, but like our industry is a little harder to put into cement words that like a business plan typically wants to see. And that's just another thing about like, I mean, even going back to the pandemic, like how much of like all of those, you know, restrictions to work and like unemployment and stuff, like I had stylists in Spokane who were booth rental at that point, and they didn't qualify for unemployment because they weren't technically there, and so they had to create like a separate resource, but that didn't come until months later. And so it really, this industry is such a unique one, and it's just, I don't know, like how is there any way to like maybe like try and create more resources that like, or even cater our industry. I don't want to even say that because like our industry is special because it is so unique, but like just to kind of create more resources and like understanding for like how to like we can fit ourselves into systems like that.
We probably just need to talk about it more.
Right.
I mean, I've had an idea for a
like
while
and subscribe.
now.
No, I'm just
I've had an idea for a while now of hosting like quarterly, like come ask me business question type classes, because I don't know everything, but I know where
you've learned a lot.
Find answers. And if there's somebody that I can like outsource to, because I know the basics, and if we can just chat about basics, and I don't know, people that have those questions that maybe like, because once you see a list, you also have questions based off that list, and so having just a space where other people are asking questions you didn't necessarily think of.
We could do this quarterly. You just talk, put you in front of the camera.
Talk at everybody about it. I'm good at that. Just talking at what I know. That's all I do. Yeah, because there's so many things that I ran into in starting Hatch that I wish I had done differently, or like somebody had told me to do it a certain way. Like one of my biggest things that kept hurting me was that I was trying to open a business after only working for myself for 2 years.
You did it so fast, which
Yeah,
is
which is too fast. I don't recommend it. But
it's
banks were looking at when my LLC was started,
Mhm.
and I started the process before I even hit 2 years. So they were saying, "Oh, you've only been in business for a year. You can't show income
Yeah.
for that year." Like, they were very particular about me being only open for a year, even though I'd been making money doing this for 9-10 years at that point.
And you were booked out even when you first started doing your own thing. Like,
and they didn't care about any of that W-2 stuff. And so if I could have even just established my LLC sooner and had an earlier year date, I think that would have given me more like business credit, because the banks, wouldn't give me loans because they said I was so new. They didn't care. Most of the places that I applied for didn't care that I put all the time into a business plan because I was a new business.
Yeah.
And it just,
most banks won't even look at you or your business plan, which is why like those smaller business startup things are so key. That's one thing that I accidentally did that I'm kind of glad about, where it's like, I feel like when people like, oh, I'm going to start my business, we're going to do everything all at once. And I was like, I found myself like, I did everything, but then I found myself like, oh, there's so much more to do. And so even like just breaking off chunk at a time, like even some of the new stylists here, raspy apparently, but even some of the new stylists here, I'm like, this is a great plan, but like start it like maybe even a year before and just like get those things, and you can kind of like bite off a little bit at a time, and you don't have to like, oh my gosh.
Anytime somebody new joins us that hasn't already been a booth renter, I tell them like, space out your licensing, because I did all of mine in November and December, and it is the most expensive month because when it's the holidays, but also like I have every license I've ever gotten have to be renewed then, plus the ones that have to be renewed at the end of every year.
Mine's August and September.
And it sucks. Like,
it's so bad.
I wish I had like spread it out periodically, and nobody tells you that.
No.